Amarachi had tried to move on. After Idris vanished, after the mirror fogged and whispered, she'd thrown away the pendant, covered every reflective surface in her flat, and filled her days with noise. Music, work, church, anything to drown out the silence he left behind. For a while it worked. But one Tuesday morning it all cracked. She was leaving her studio when she saw him. At the estate gate. Leaning against the wall. Same hoodie. Same half-smile. Idris. Her breath caught. She blinked once, twice. But he didn't vanish. He stepped forward. Amara. She froze. Her voice barely left her. You're not supposed to be here. I had to see you, he said. I came back. For you. Tears threatened her eyes. No. You left. You faded. I watched you disappear. He reached out but she stepped back. Don't. I'm real, he whispered. I've never felt more alive. She stared at him. Something was off. Subtle. The way he blinked. The pause before his sentences. Like he was rehearsing being Idris. Where have you been all this time? She asked. He smiled. Around. Watching over you. Waiting for you to be ready. Her heart thudded. Her hand instinctively went to her neck, where the pendant used to sit. I don't wear it anymore, she whispered. I know, he said. That's how I knew it was time to return. Amarachi took another step back. Behind Idris, a little girl walked past with her mother, but paused. She pointed at him and said quietly, Mummy, why is that man not casting shadow? Amarachi didn't sleep that night. She kept the lights on, played worship music on repeat, told herself it was a hallucination, that grief had returned wearing Idris's face. But the next morning, he was at her gate again, smiling. Familiar. Can we talk? He asked. No, she said, stepping around him. You're not real. He followed, not walking, gliding like his feet barely touched the ground. I thought you wanted answers. She spun on him. From you. Yes, he said. From the one you kissed. The one you begged to stay. Amarachi's heart pounded. Her fingers trembled. Idris would never use my feelings against me. His smile cracked. Are you sure I'm not him? She didn't answer. She walked away. But that day, strange things started happening. At her studio, her reflection smiled before she did. Her client's makeup brush levitated for a second, then snapped in two. At night, the walls of her apartment whispered. Not loudly. Just beneath the hum of the fan. You still remember me? She screamed. Threw her mirror across the room. The next morning she found a black rose on her doorstep. No note. No vase. Just the flower. Wilting at the edges, but bleeding from the stem. That evening she walked to the rooftop. The one where she used to photograph Lagos sunsets. Her safe place. And he was there again. Leaning on the ledge like he'd never left. This time his smile was gone. I'm starting to forget, he whispered. Forget what? She asked cautiously. He looked at her, eyes darkening. Where I end, and you begin. The days bled together. Amarachi would wake up with soil on her feet, dirt under her nails. One morning she found her bathtub full of water, and her clothes soaked. But she hadn't bathed. She began locking her doors, setting alarms, leaving notes for herself. You are Amarachi. You are alive. You are not his. And still Idris came, each time more demanding, more intense, more possessive. You said you'd love me forever, he whispered one night, crouched at the foot of her bed. I said that before I buried you, she snapped, heart pounding. You weren't supposed to come back. He stood slowly. Then why did your soul call me? She stared at him. Maybe it wasn't calling you. Maybe it was calling closure. His eyes flickered. For a moment, just a moment, his skin shifted. A flash of something else beneath the surface. Something ancient. Butching. He screamed. And he vanished. 2 days later, Amarachi met Obinna. It was at her studio. His younger sister was getting pre-wedding photos done. He waited quietly, smiled warmly, and offered to help move her equipment. "You look like someone who carries too much in silence," he said gently. She blinked at him, surprised. They talked for nearly an hour. He didn't hover, didn't pry. He made her laugh, real belly-deep laughter. The kind she hadn't felt since before Idris. He handed her his card before leaving. Binais, architect. She almost threw it away. Until she turned it over. On the back, someone had scribbled, "We meet again, even when we don't know it yet," in her own handwriting. But she'd never seen that card before. For the first time in weeks, Amarachi sat across from someone and didn't feel like she was being studied or haunted. Obinna took her to a quiet garden cafe in Surulere. No music, just wind, flowers, the slow clinking of cutlery. He talked about architecture, buildings that breathe, homes that hold memory. She talked about light, how it captures truth in shadows. They laughed, easy, unforced, real. "You're not like other people," he said, watching her as she stirred her drink. He smirked. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," he replied. "You feel older. Like your soul has seen more than your age." She looked up sharply. "What made you say that?" He shrugged. "It's just a feeling." But her chest tightened. Later that evening they walked by the lagoon. The moon sat low, full, golden. Obinna didn't try to hold her hand. He didn't ask about her past. He let the silence exist. And it was the first silence that didn't feel threatening. "I haven't felt this calm in a long time," she admitted. He smiled. "Then hold on to it." As they parted, he pulled a book from his bag, a worn poetry collection. "Page 27, he said. "That's the one that reminded me of you." Back at home she opened it. The poem was untitled. But the last line sent chills through her. "Even if I lose this life again, I'll find her in the next one." Handwritten below it, in familiar cursive, were the initials I.O. Her breath caught. She flipped to the front cover. The book once belonged to Idris Olatunde. The book stayed on her table for 2 days before Amarachi could open it again. She'd stared at the initials over and over. Yo, Idris Olatunde. How did Obinna get a book that belonged to a man who died in 1998? When she asked him, his answer was too simple. "I found it in a second-hand shop in Bariga." The poem just felt familiar. She didn't press. But the ache in her chest grew louder. That night, her dream came violently. She was standing in an open field, barefoot. The sky overhead rumbled with lightning. She wore a dress that wasn't hers, older, layered, colonial. And across from her stood 2 men. One was Idris, younger, alive, tears in his eyes. The other was Obinna. But his name wasn't Obinna in the dream. He wore glasses, held a letter, and whispered, "If you choose him again, the curse returns." She gasped awake, drenched in sweat. Her phone flashed. 3:03 a.m. On her palm, a red line. Thin, fresh. Like something had been carved into her skin. She ran to the bathroom. In the mirror, the cut spelled choose. The next day, Amarachi visited the old art studio again. Dust covered the air, but something called her back. She opened one of the cracked sketchbooks left behind, and there it was. A charcoal drawing of 3 figures. A woman, who looked exactly like her. And 2 men, Idris, and someone who looked like Obinna. But from another era. She turned the page. A single sentence scratched into the paper. "The soul remembers, even if the mind forgets." Amarachi stood outside Obinna's apartment, the sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. She didn't call ahead. She couldn't. Her mind was spiraling. He opened the door, surprised but calm. "Amara." She stepped in without speaking. "I need to ask you something," she said. Her voice was shaking but steady. "Have we met before this life?" Obinna stared at her, then closed the door behind them. "You don't believe in coincidences, do you?" he asked softly. She shook her head. I've seen you in dreams, he said. Since I was a boy. Always running through fire. Always wearing red. And always leaving me behind. She dropped the sketchbook on his table. Then why didn't you say anything? Because, he whispered. Every time I told you, you died. Tears welled in her eyes. And Idris? Was he part of those dreams too? Obina's jaw clenched. Yes. He always came first. She turned to leave, heart torn open. But her phone buzzed. Single message. No name. No number. Just 5 words. I never really left you. The lights in Obina's apartment flickered. A gust of cold air swept through, though no window was open. And a voice. His voice. From inside the hallway. Behind the mirror. Amara. He froze. And then he stepped out. Idris. But not the Idris she kissed. Not the Idris she mourned. His skin was too pale. His eyes too wide. He smiled, and it didn't reach his face. I've been watching, he said. I was patient. But now, you're forgetting me. Amarachi backed away. Obina moved between them. Whoever you are, you're not welcome here. Idris tilted his head. Then maybe it's time I stop asking. And in that instant the windows shattered. The mirror behind him cracked and bled. After the glass shattered, Obina grabbed Amarachi and ran. They spent the night in a small guest house outside town. No mirrors. No windows. Just silence. But sleep didn't come. Because when Amarachi closed her eyes, he was there. Not Idris, not anymore. Something deeper. Something older. A shadow that wore Idris's face but whispered things Idris never would. You said you'd remember me. Now you let another man hold what was mine. She woke up screaming, nails dug into her palms. Obina held her, but his hands were colder than usual. Something's changing, he said, eyes dark. I can feel him inside the walls. Inside me sometimes. She pulled away, staring. What do you mean? Obina hesitated. I think I was part of it too. Long ago. A mistake that started everything. The next day they found a woman, the prophet who once warned Amarachi. Let him go or follow him. She lived in a hut behind an abandoned church. Her eyes were cloudy. Her voice like wind on bone. You've broken the cycle, she said to Amarachi. But broken things bleed. What cycle? Amarachi asked. The woman touched her forehead. You weren't the cursed one, child. You were the curse. The room spun. What? In the first life, you made a vow no spirit could undo. You bound 2 men to you, and time has been trying to correct it ever since. Amarachi stepped back, breath caught in her chest. I was the curse. You were the promise, the woman whispered. And the consequence. Obina staggered beside her. Then what happens now? The woman closed her eyes. Now, the one who remembers her longest wins her soul. They returned to the old art studio. The place where it all began. Where Amarachi had once seen herself drawn by hands that died decades ago. This time she came to finish it. Obina stood beside her, pale, sweating. Every time Idris came close, Obina weakened. As if something was draining him, erasing him. Idris, or the thing inside him, stood by the broken mirror. You always choose him, it growled. Lifetime after lifetime. You call me, you kiss me, and then, you leave. Amarachi's voice shook. You're not Idris. But I remember you better than he ever did, it whispered. I remember your voice in the fire. Your heartbeat before death. Carried you through lifetimes. I loved you past the grave. You possessed me. I belonged to you. She turned to Obina, now kneeling, coughing blood. The prophet's words echoed. The one who remembers her longest wins her soul. It wasn't about love. It was about possession. About who would hold her soul, once and for all. Bina looked up. Amara, don't choose. Break it. Amarachi stepped into the circle of salt they'd drawn. She held the old pendant, cracked but still pulsing. Then she did something unexpected. She looked not at Idris. Not at Obina, but into the mirror, straight at herself, and whispered, "I remember everything, even who I was before both of you." The pendant burst into flame. The mirror shattered, but the reflection stayed. In it she saw a version of herself, dressed in white, as glowing, smiling like she'd just been born. The room went dark. When light returned, Amarachi was gone. No body, no scream, just ash, and a single word scrawled on the wall in smoke. Again, a man walks into a bookstore. He asks for poetry. The seller hands him a dusty book. Inside the first page, a name written in faded ink, Amarachi Okoye, and just beneath it, "When she returns, I'll be waiting." Initials, I.O.